Hi, I'm back. You're back. And now we're on to a review of chapter 2 of the text in preparation for the exam that is happening in just a few days. I'm going basically over almost every single question on the exam. So if you watch this and watch it multiple times and take notes and go through your book, you should be set to just ace this exam. If you don't do this, then I don't know. We'll see what happens. Do it. It's worth it. You'll feel good. Get a good grade. Okay, chapter 2 is all about time and rhythm and tempo, those kind of things. So first of all, we start with rhythm. And rhythm, in its broadest sense, is the term used to describe the time aspect of music. Okay, I'm going to say that again, the time aspect of music. Now, that same term can be used in a more specific sense as well to indicate the long and short of notes. So whether a note is short or whether a note is long, and the patterns of those short and long notes. That's another way that rhythm is used. But it also is used to describe just the broad time aspect of music. Got it? Good. So I think there are 2 questions on exactly that. The next term to go over is beat. Beat is very important. That's the pulse of the music. Okay, so for example, a piece might have its main beat as a quarter note, and that would be whatever. But the beat is the main pulse. It's what you're tapping your foot to as you listen to music. Now, tempo is the speed of that beat. So basically, if that beat is happening very quickly, that's a fast tempo. If it's happening very slowly, it's a slow tempo. Okay? Tempo is very important and is usually indicated by a composer in one of 2 ways. Either a certain term is used, for example, a descriptive term like grave, or andante, or allegro, or adagio, or allegretto. Again, what language are we using? Italian. It's beautiful. But we can use those terms to describe the character of a piece and the basic tempo of a piece. And the terms, the terms that I just mentioned, you don't have to know all of them, but I do want you to be familiar with grave, andante, and allegro. Grave being the slowest, andante is like andare, and it's walking or going, so it's better than walking speed, and allegro is fast. Okay, so I want you to be prepared to put those in order of fast to slow or slow to fast. That refers to tempo. Okay. The next thing I want to mention is a very important aspect of music, and that is meter. Now try to think right now what meter means. You have it? Meter is very important, and there are many categories of meter that you're going to be responsible for knowing. So meter is all about a recurring pattern of strong and weak beats. So to have meter, we need to have accent. We need to have one beat feeling stronger than another beat. We need a beat to be louder. So the basic pulse of music, there is a hierarchy of the strength of beats. Now if we are in duple meter, that hierarchy is going to happen in groups of 2 or in groups of 4, basically in some kind of 2. So for example, if we're going 1, 2, 1, 2, 1 is obviously stronger, I'm saying that louder. And if I were writing that out on the exam, I might write 1 in capital letters or something, and that would show that that's stronger. So 1, 2, 1, 2 is an example of duple meter. And remember, we 1, 2, 1, 2, we learned how to conduct that. That's duple meter. 4 would also be duple meter. 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay? 1, 2, 3, 4. We still have a feeling of 2 by having a strong beat on 1 and a strong beat on 3. Now another form of simple meter is 3, or triple meter. And triple meter is 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. It's like a waltz. Remember, I waltzed for all of you. And we learned how to conduct that as well in class. Those are all examples of simple meter. But there's also a different kind of meter that's a little more complex that has elements of 2 and elements of 3. Do you remember what that's called? I hope so. Compound meter. An example of compound meter would be something like 6, 8. Now remember, when I say those numbers, the number on top, or the first number I speak, represents the number of beats per measure, and the number below represents what note gets the beat. So in 6/8, there are 6 eighth notes per measure. In 3/4, there are 3 quarter notes per measure. Okay, so get that straight. Now, I don't think I asked that specifically, but definitely knowing simple meter from compound meter is going to be important, and duple from triple meter, etc. So compound meter, 6/8, would do something like this. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So you have a feeling of 3. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. But you also have a feeling of 2. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. When I say 4, it's like beat 2. That's why it's compound. All right, next important thing to remember, syncopation. Syncopation is a cool word. It's definitely on the exam. I love syncopation. And that's emphasizing a beat that's normally weak. So for example, if we're usually going 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, a composer might show that he or she wants you to accent a beat that's normally weak. Sorry. For example, 2 or 3. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And we talked about styles of music that use that, like reggae and ska and jazz, and a lot of popular styles also use that. It can be really interesting. Okay, another thing about meter that we need to know about, and well, of tempo and time aspect of music in general, rhythm, is what a metronome mark means. Now remember, a metronome is a special, well, it keeps the beat, basically. It gives you a pulse. It's a machine, or it can be, doesn't even need energy necessarily, it can be a pendulum, but it basically gives you the pulse of, gives you a certain beat, a regular beat. So that's used by musicians to make sure they're playing at a certain tempo, and composers use it to indicate how fast they might want you to play a piece. So they might indicate in beats per minute, like a quarter note equals 60 would mean basically the quarter note will happen 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi, 3 Mississippi, 60 beats per minute. So in other words, a beat each second. So you'll want to know that, what a metronome does, and that it measures beats per minute. All right, next we're going to move on to pitch. That's the second part of this chapter. Pitch, under this area, you need to know what an interval is. An interval is a distance between two notes. Don't be confused by the concept of time. I know you would think of time as intervals. Don't do that. With music, we're talking about the distance between two pitches. That can be large, it can be small. The smallest interval possible is the what step? The what? The half step. You've got it. Half step is the smallest interval that we find in Western music, in most Western music. Okay, the interval of an octave is a very important interval. It sounds really good, almost sounds like the same pitch. It blends very well together. They seem to duplicate each other. There are 7 pitches in a typical diatonic scale. A diatonic scale is used most commonly in Western music, and an example of that would be the white keys on the piano. And basically we go through 7 of those before we repeat, because we use the letters A through G, and then we repeat, and if you count them, you get 7. A 12-pitch scale, however, is a chromatic scale that's a little bit more complex and kind of interesting, and that would use the white keys as well as the black keys on the piano. That would be an example of a chromatic scale. Now, I want to briefly go over notation. You'll need to know that the staff, those are the 5 parallel lines in which notes are placed. And there's a whole section of this on your book. Where a pitch is determines how high or low that pitch is. So if it's high in the staff, it's going to sound high. If it's low in the staff, it's going to sound low. What the note looks like, whether it's colored in, whether it has a stem, whether it has a flag, that indicates duration. And one thing you will need to remember is that if there's a dot next to a note, it increases the value of that note. A dot put right to the right of the note will increase the value of that note by half of its original value. We talked about that in class, but please read about it if you missed that class. Okay, actually, we did it. We actually flew through and have covered, I think, everything except fermata. Fermata is a special symbol with a dot in the middle, and that indicates that you should hang on a note, you should wait on a note. That's one other thing that might be on the exam. I believe it's on my concept list, so you'll want to review that as well from your book. So that covers chapter 2. Wow, that's not so bad, is it? You're going to do great. So rewind this, play this, take notes, read your book. Get this stuff right. Rhythm is great. Okay, next stop will be chapter 3.